Sting?
Okay, so Sting starts out at a B only for the fact that I don't know the guy that well. Anytime he's very cordial, very nice, very courteous, hello and goodbye, maybe 1, 3, or 5 minute conversation here and there. I never got to know Sting, but his reputation precedes him. So I put him at a B and I don't put him higher because I've seen him deal with people. I've seen him be very generous. We see him be generous right now with Darby Allin's career, still kind of fostering, mentoring, and of course, trying to get his son into the business. That might put him down to a D right there, but trying to get your kid in the business. But I have never heard a cross word about Sting at all. So I'm going off reputation, very limited. So the C would be neutral, like I'm not quite sure it's been up or down or whatever, but Sting goes up to a B there.
Were the, I guess the big name stars in TNA, were they generally more accessible than they would be in WWE or WCW, for example? I mean, there were no private locker rooms, were there?
No, there were. There were private locker rooms. Yeah, not really private, but we had the production office. You had the trailers. You had 2 trailers, and guys would have their little cliques in the 2 trailers to get dressed and everything. Then you would go down a hallway. To the right would be the bathrooms where you shower, go down the hallway a little bit, and that would be where they either have production meetings and stuff like that. But it was also Hogan and Bischoff were there. I think Sting had a room with them or somewhere close. Not that it was designated for that, but they would just take those rooms. You wouldn't see a whole lot of Bischoff, Hogan, Steiner, who else? Booker T wouldn't be in the trailers. Who else? Sting would be there back and forth. Those are the guys that know each other throughout multiple companies.
Next one, Matt Morgan.
Matt Morgan, I would say, is an A. This is a guy I still communicate with from time to time. I know he comments on some of these videos to clarify or back up what I say sometimes. But, Matt has made himself successful outside of the business. That's always great and inspirational. He's always very nice. And, he's a guy in TNA. They kind of started to do the blueprint thing the way it should be done because WWE didn't do any favors with that stuttering gimmick or anything else. So he's kind of coming into his own with TNA, but it just never, I thought he'd go back to WWE, to be honest with you, after getting over in TNA, because he's 7 feet tall, has an athletic background, but he ended up making a life for himself after that. We don't talk a whole lot these days, but there was a time where we were texting back and forth and talking. I think he still talks to people like Russo and other people like that. So hope he's doing well.
Do you know what's funny is the saw how well the stuttering thing went for Goldust and thought, you know what, let's bring that back. Matt Morgan, come over.
We need a bigger stutterer in the company. Come here.
Yeah, 6'6" wasn't tall enough. We need a near 7 foot guy now. Christopher Daniels.
Can I do my preliminary Mount Rushmore list already on the second name? He's an ass. He's an ass. We don't talk that much, recently in years or whatever, but there was a time, especially in WWE, in my lowest points and stuff, I would talk to Chris almost every day, and he was one of the people that really wanted me in TNA, and I wanted to be there with him in TNA, and he was always really a good friend back then, and I think he's head of talent relations now in AEW, correct?
Yeah.
So it's good to see him still in the business, making money, making a full-time living. I had visited him and his family a couple of times when I was with WWE, when I went out to California, and they were just a great family, and he's a great guy.
Abyss.
I would say a B. Really nice guy, but never really got to know him too much outside of the actual angle and working with him. That's the only thing that disqualifies him from an A or an S. His reputation, obviously, as being a very nice guy, almost to a fault, precedes him. You could see an Unreal. That is Chris. That's Abyss. Trying to please everybody, trying to make everybody happy, doesn't want anybody mad at him, and definitely one of the nicest guys in the business. So I give him a B.
I can't remember if we included this fella. I don't think we did because I wanted to save him for TNA, but the worst Madden player of all time, AJ Styles.
He's a D. Absolutely. Triple D. Now, AJ and I were friendly at one time, aren't really friends now, I don't really talk to many people in the business. Even before we started the show, I was pretty much out in my own desert or island. AJ's a super nice guy. I sometimes never knew what I was getting with him because he's a very emotional guy sometimes. I can understand that as far as his push. Being, remember all the stuff when he left TNA because they offered him, 40% what he was getting before? So that frustration might have carried over into our friendship, other places, but he never verbalized that frustration. But I would still say I was never as tight with him as Chris Daniels, but I would say it's a B. I mean, I would say A or S, but just the Madden, the subpar Madden plays got to knock him down a few notches. It really does.
Yeah, I don't blame you. Scott Steiner.
Scott Steiner. Oh, my goodness. You never knew what you were going to get with Scott. And then sometimes I know he's kind of like, who did I say was Sabu? Unintentionally funny in a lot of ways, if you knew how to interpret it. And for many years in WWE, I did not know how to interpret Scott. But I have to give him a C just because I never got to know him. Never. Actually, it might be non-applicable in a way, but I did get to know him a little bit when we worked together. I mean, when he squashed me, we didn't really work together. How's that? But let's just call it a C just because it's neutral.
James Storm.
James Storm. I would still put James at a C because I never really got to know him. We called that match together for the EV2 Fortune thing, which was an absolute nightmare. I'm not going to lie to you. Him and Bobby Roode were guys that always needed to get their stuff in, and they got their stuff in because they were figured in, heavily. But it was never fun to talk a match over with those guys, but I never not got to know them personally. So I would just say C. Nice enough guys, both of them. So put Bobby Roode in there as well, since that's next. Same experience.
Angelina Love.
Angelina Love. Never got to know her personally too much. She was always very nice, so I'd say a C. Now, Velvet Sky knew since the Indies. Both lived in Connecticut. I would say she's one of the nicest girls out there, and I would put her at probably, based on how I got to know her and the people around me, like Ron Zombie and other people, independent workers, I'd put her at an
A. Samoa Joe.
Samoa Joe, I'd put it at a B. Got to know him somewhat, not quite as much as Chris. Always very nice, always very funny, not very Samoa Joe-like is what you see on TV. Super nice guy, played video games, a little bit silly in a good way back in the locker room, but never got to know Joe on a one-to-one friendship level like that, like I did with Chris.
Samoa Joe, I have to ask, I know this is before your time, but did you ever hear the story of the Kevin Nash and Samoa Joe confrontation?
Yeah, I think I was there in TNA for that. Or no, I wasn't.
I thought it was the year
wasn't in
before.
there. I wasn't in there for that. No, I remember the backstage thing between them after he cut the promo about Scott Hall, correct?
Mm-hmm. I think Joe had a point. Do you know what I mean?
Well, there's a truth in both of what they said and did, or the presentation or the timing. I'm not getting into that. But yeah, it was something it happened, and I think it was squashed immediately after that. Am I off base with that?
Well, it depends on whose story you say, but I believe quite soon afterwards, yeah. Kurt Angle. And obviously you wrestled Kurt Angle, a terrifying prospect, I guess, especially if you're Danny Doring.
Don't look up. It's a terrifying prospect, and it's also just as terrifying if you're friends with him. I never considered Kurt to be, and don't take this the wrong way, because Kurt actually, one of his publicists actually responded when I said he was one of the nicest guys I've ever met in the business. That's still true, but I was never a friend of Kurt's as far friend. See, the two things in wrestling, love and friendship, are so over-exaggerated, and these words are used very loosely. I was friendly with Kurt. He was one of the friendliest, nicest guys you could ever meet in the business, while also being one of the most deadly human beings you can ever come across in your life. So therefore, I give him an S. No, he's an A. He's an A.
Saying that now, this is no tales out of school. He's been very, very open with his struggles with addiction over the years. Between, I guess, knowing him or being around him in WWE and then comparing it to TNA, did his personality change? Because he was by his own admission, heavily in addiction for a lot of his time in TNA, especially the early years. Was he harder to talk to, or was he zoned out a bit more?
The word I would use, and that was the thing in Gorilla that one time where he was so catatonically intense that I was like, we're effing dead. You know what I mean? But if I could say that, I think Kurt felt like he was on a prove-it deal. It felt very much like Kurt had a chip on his shoulder, not in a bad way, but he had something to prove to TNA, to WWE, to all the boys and girls, and to the wrestling fans in general. I felt that intensity and determination that was so much more bigger than the match he was about to wrestle. And maybe if his publicist can respond to this and give us some clarification, we can update you on that. I'm talking about overall. It's super nice. I would say, I think I said this last time so uncharacteristically about Kurt. He's a sweet guy. He really, really is. Please don't beat me up. Just hug me.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I asked Kurt before. I know there's some like swap over kind of thing here, but it doesn't matter. Jay Lethal. Man, I tell you what, I love Black Machismo. I love that character. I wish he carried on with it. I know it was a total... He somehow made it his own. I love it.
Yeah, and people still probably ask for cameos today to do the Black Machismo gimmick, or he does a ton of impressions. He does Flair, does Macho. I think he does a couple more. I put Jay...
Does he do Tony Gurria?
No, better not. Hey, what are you, smartass? He is a smartass. That's why I love him, because he's so funny. He's more funny than he is. He's subdued on TV compared to how funny he is in the locker room. I consider Jay to be a friend. Once again, never as close as I was or talked as much to him as I would Chris, but I would put Jay in the A category for that.
Nick Aldis. Do you remember what his TNA name was at the time? Yeah, Brutus Magnus.
I'll tell you a story about Nick Aldis. I don't know if he forgot it. I don't think he did. I put Nick, I don't know him that well. Great talent. Great to see him as an authority figure on SmackDown. Nick had the gimmick basically that was favored by Dixie Carter. She saw him on Gladiators on whatever was over in Britain, correct?
Yeah, so to explain, I believe he was a pro wrestler already. There was a revival of Gladiators that only went for 2 series on Sky 1. And it was a huge deal in the 90s. They revived it in like 2006, I guess, or somewhere around there. Kirsty Gallagher was the host. It didn't have the same personality. Gladiators has actually been re-revived over here a couple of years ago, but they kept it just like the 90s, same theme song, same everything, and it was a huge success. But the only person who stood out as a gladiator was Nick. He was the only one with personality. He was the only one treating it like it was sports entertainment.
Yeah, and then, well, he's back in wrestling, thank God. I wish, just in retrospect, he had just gotten RKO'd not long ago by Randy Orton. Everybody thought he was going to be the replacement guy at WrestleMania in Vegas. It turned out to be Joe Henry. That's fine. But, man, it would have been so awesome to see Nick have a WrestleMania moment, have a match, and people see what people who watched NWA, what people who watched TNA, and everything. And he's much better now. You know what I mean? I'm sure he can get in the ring and work. Same thing with Adam Pearce. But I remember in the trailer, the boys were kind of ribbing him, and I'm paraphrasing some of the things that were said. They put his 8x10 up on the trailer wall and were making fun of it. And I remember he had said something, kind of bit back on him or said something back and not taking it. You know what I mean? After a while, he said something back. Boys kind of looked at him funny. I remember following him out of the trailer, and I said, hey, dude, I just want to let you know, that's all jealousy in there. You're going to be an effing star. Take what they just said and all that stuff and shove it up right up their butt. And it wasn't anything that I said that could motivate him, but I've been in that spot. Like, what are you making the guy? I mean, obviously, Dixie favored him, had him put on TV, and he had to push off of that. The Office, of course, saw that he carried the ball as well. If he was strictly, well, Dixie thinks he's handsome or whatever and puts him on TV, you still have to know how to work. And even being green, I could see this guy's going to be in WWE. That's what I thought. He's a WWE wrestler. Never worked out that way, but good to see him on WWE TV.
Yeah, he's still one of the main characters. I'm sure he'll wrestle
So
at some point if he wants to.
I only put him at a C because I don't know Nick that well. As a matter of fact, after all that Bruce Prichard garbage, and everything, I actually text Nick about that, the Mickey James stuff. Bruce said something about Nick, and I remember it a while back, and I text Nick and said, don't listen to that. You're this and that. And he goes, whatever. He just rolled off. There was something between him and Bruce like a couple of years ago or more, if I can remember.
Yeah, he said that he thought that I was playing the part of a wrestler and not really owning it, which was like.
Was he an Impact when you were an Impact?
For a short while, yeah. But he was. But see, this is the part that's up about that, in that so they reference it from. I guess they're talking about some Impact show. And they referenced it was when I worked with Alberto, right? So I had actually left the company at that point. I just came back into, if you remember, because you were there, I came back to work with Alberto, and because I was like, that was interesting to me, so I did it. Anyway, and Bruce basically says, he doesn't have the it factor, he didn't have the it factor, blah, blah, blah. Well, look, if he'd have been talking about Magnus, the JoJo character that from TNA, and when I was in my early to mid 20s, he would probably been right. But the reality, it's Conrad then says, well, what about what he's been doing with the NWA and stuff? He's like, he's just playing the part, he's playing the role of a wrestler. He's not really. And I was just sorry, I got to speak on this. You
have the it factor.
If he'd left it alone, just the TNA stuff, I'd have been cool. But when he based it was obvious that A, he hadn't actually watched any of it, and B, that he was just trying to bury me. He was just trying to he went out of his way to take food off my table and up my value in the market, and I don't take kindly to that.
When did Bruce get to TNA? Was that while you were still there or after?
He was there when I was there, yeah. And
fun
this
times.
was when Russo got him the job, and then 2 weeks later he was Russo's boss. So yeah, and that's what I mean. Right there, it's weaponized that way. His opinion, and I got to give credit to Nick. 25 years old, I couldn't have the guts to speak like that with that kind of confidence at 25. Think about that. Giving up that, it was probably good money, but Nick saw his value, and he had to go and start all over again and do the NWA thing. And now, thank God, he's making money with WWE. Hopefully him and Bruce have a professional relationship, and that's water under the bridge. I can know for a fact that Nick is the kind of man that can sweep it into the past. Let's not forget how they treated his wife. I never want people to forget that Mark Carano sent her belongings home in a garbage bag.
Yeah.
That's still the same company. I'm sorry. Still the same company.
There's a reason why he had the nickname Cockroach Carano. Was that not right?
I gave him that nickname.
Very good. Doug Williams.
Doug Williams, I have to openly apologize for the Stevie kick to underneath his nose and his mouth at Final Resolution. I'm so sorry about that. I don't know Doug that well, so I have to say a C. I'd put him at a B because of the one super kick that ended up hitting somebody.
Let's give him a B then, just as an apology.
Sorry about that.
Rob Terry. He was the big dude in the British Invasion who just never kind of went anywhere as well.
Rob Terry was my albatross, and not in a bad way. I'll explain why. Rob's, by the way, a B. Super nice guy, probably too nice. I was thinking to myself, too, if they're going to push Magnus at any point, Rob Terry's got to be you know what I mean? You're talking about Batista. He looks like Batista, with a crew cut or a short haircut. When I was at the point in my career when they were saying you're going to be like a player coach type of thing, where you're going to work people on Explosion, you're going to work when we do have house shows, you're going to work these people on house shows. I was going to be married to Rob Terry on house shows, Explosion, maybe some episodes of Impact, to help him come along, to teach him how to work, be relaxed, use his character, whatever that might be. They must have pulled that card out at least 5 times, and it never happened. So he's my albatross, but he was super nice, super talented. What's that dude up to now?
Don't know.
Wow.
After TNA, I don't know if he did anything.
I thought for sure WWE would have signed that guy to at least do something in NXT. I don't know.
He stuck around until 2013 in TNA, went to OVW, what's the Menagerie? Oh, he went back to TNA 2014, 2015, independent circuit for a few years, and then he quit in 2019. Just never had a major run anywhere.
Well, he definitely deserved it. He definitely did, just on looks alone. And he was safe. It's nothing Rob ever did to hurt anybody. I think just like you said about Dutch, if he could have give Rob Terry a simple storyline to follow what another worker would experience to follow, I mean, he could have been a star.
Next one, D'Angelo De Niro, better known as Elijah Burke, who, can I just also say, he's now working for the NWA now.
Really?
He just pops up here and there still, yeah he's still working.
Elijah's always been a guy that's been very political. I never got to know him super personal, but he's never bothered me. So I would have to put him at a C just for the fact in the new ECW, myself, Dreamer, Punk, Kevin Thorne, Elijah, we were all working each other for like, it felt like months in combination, singles, stuff like that. Here's the funny thing, and I still joke with him. He knows exactly what I say when I see him at conventions, which I won't because I don't do them anymore. I remember we were talking this match over. It was the four-way, like a four-way elimination, then it went to a triple threat, then it went to a match, and the winner got to be number one contender for the ECW title. So we had worked the four-way. Before we worked it, I remember we were by these bleachers, and it had the red light because they were going to do somebody's promo later. And I was standing there, and we were talking. And by the way, Elijah and Kevin Thorne did not like each other. Watch the four-way dance. And when they're throwing live rounds at each other. I'm just watching it like a fan as I'm selling. And they're fine now. Everybody's fine now. Me and Kevin used to kill each other as well. So we did it test style, the strong style. Mm-hmm. But I remember I was talking to Elijah and I'm calling these things and nothing was like getting over for me. I'm like, well, maybe we would do this or that. He put his arm around me and he goes, he does the Toy Story thing. He puts his arm around me and he goes, Stevie, you need to see the big picture of this. I was like, oh, maybe you should explain. He goes, you're not figured into any of this. We're doing this and that. And I was like, I did my, like when people used to explain something to Hurricane that was so ridiculous that he would just stare off into space like this, like away from him, just deadpan. So I was doing that look. So then when fast forward, we were at a show where I was getting put, I think it wasn't Wildcat, it was somewhere else. And Elijah was coming up. He was a part of something. He was like, hey, Stevie, I was thinking about doing this, and the other thing. I put my arm around him and I said, Elijah, you have to see the big picture of all this. And he would laugh every time, but it was just my little back to him. He's harmless enough. Sylvester Turkay was not harmless. That dude crushed my ribs one time. But I would give him a C just because I never got to know Elijah outside of the business, but he was fine. But that four-way, we need to watch it. If people want us to watch it, there's a lot of live rounds thrown in that match.
Madison Rain.
Never got to know her. I have to say, not applicable.
NA. Roxy.
Never got to know her. And /A.
Awesome Kong.
I definitely tried to be friendly to Awesome Kong for my own sake. Mm-hmm. She freaked me out so much that she had such a little mouse voice compared to what she worked. She was the sweetest thing. She wanted to beat up a Love Sponge one day. That was awesome.
Oh, dude. Future episode. You better believe that.
She wanted to badly. And nobody was stopping her. At least none of the boys. The office might be. So sweet. And I used this for Joe kind of for the same reasons. She could work Gail Kim and work Gail Kim's style at her size. A generation, I would dare say, a multi-generational talent, a transcendent talent. And I still wait for the day, I don't know, it's not going to come, for her to come back as Karma or Awesome Kong and do something.
No, I think she's, I don't know if she's in her like mid-late 40s now. I don't see her coming back now. It'd be such 10 years too soon. Yeah, she's 48 now. Oh, so I don't think a comeback.
She could still outwork most of the people in the business, guys and girls.
Have you got a grade? Is it S because you're that scared?
Yeah, S stands for scared.
What's the grade?
The grade, I give her an A. Just because I did have conversations and I did put over, I was like, you don't understand. I'm sorry. Like, just like PJ, I'm a mark. I believed your gimmick out there. Now I'm hearing you talk. And I'm just like, I would stare at her when she talked. And she's like, what's wrong? And I go, I have no idea. I don't know.
Gail Kim, because you mentioned it before, Gail Kim.
Gail Kim, I would give a solid B2. Never got to know her as a friend, but such a nice girl in and out of the ring, even though she caused permanent hearing loss for her slaps. That's how much I like Gail. She destroyed my ear slapping me, and I still like her.
And this is in TNA, not
no WWE. One of her debut matches, teaming up with Val against Victoria and myself, she slapped me. And I said, please don't slap me in the ear, because everybody was doing it. Like, I was part of those mixed tag team matches. Trish, Jad, everybody's just killing me.
You mentioned these names before as well. Alex Shelley, Chris Sabin.
Yes. These guys are
both of them?
Two of my favorites, yeah. Two of my favorites. Matter of fact, when I would tell the truth about the business in general or what's going on there or certain people or whatever, they would both say sometimes in unison and be like, I love you, Stevie Richards. I love you too, Chris Sabin and Alex Shelley. And then and the funny part is I would reverse it a lot because always like Shelley and Sabin, but because I love Chris, I would say Chris Sabin and Alex Shelley. Then when I turn around and say Alex, just let him have this one.
Dave Penzer. I nearly said Meltzer then. Dave Penzer.
Dave Penzer, he'd get a higher grade than Meltzer. But I never really got to know Dave. I would have to give him a C, but he was always very respectful, very nice, worked hard to announce, to make everybody look like stars or sound like stars with the announcements. So definitely.
Don West. Underrated commentator.
Don West, I believe, on a media front, on the TV facing front, is the sole reason that Dr. Stevie got as over as he did. Because he put over the Dr. Stevie character as somebody who thought Dr. Stevie was doing good. He was the best at being a heel commentator. He was so much better as a heel. I got to know him. Crash always told me he'd say Gem and 10 because of the old shopping network days when he sold the trading cards. He would say Gem and 10. So I would say Gem and 10 to him a lot, and he would laugh. He was a nice guy, and man, rest in peace to the guy that was also gone way too soon. I give Don an A.
I think it was so sad as well, and it's nothing negative to Taz because he was a really good color commentator as well. But man, Don West was the voice of TNA. I mean, it's sad that they couldn't have them both there, kind of thing. I guess.
Yeah, but also Don also would keep the crowd excited. Would throw T-shirts out, would do content. He would do everything he could. Jeremy Borash as well would do that. But Don would be the person to keep the crowd hyped up. He was the ultimate hype man.
When Don West threw the T-shirts into the crowd, did you ever notice Earl Hebner trying to get the T-shirts back from them?
Yeah, I mean, that was an unfortunate side effect of that, yeah. You'll never... Yeah, that's like your favorite go-to when it comes to merch.
Yeah, TNA. T-E-N-A-Y. Mike Tenay.
Yeah, Mike Tenay, almost TNA, but TNA plus an E and a Y. EY, Eric Young will be coming up.
Oh, that's terrible. I was going to say it's TNA with an EA, but it isn't. It's an EY. Yeah. Whatever. Mike Tenay.
So Mike Tenay, I'd have to put him once again in an A. You know, I got to know him through WCW and TNA. Strictly professional, but I'd say friendly professional. But this is as far as the number of interactions that I have. And Mike and Don were in Taz too. Very receptive of, hey, can you get this in? You know, because you're making the job much easier. Hey, when Abyss brings me up, you know, to the commentary, like during that final resolution match between myself and Raven, him and Mick Foley, I was screaming help in my ultimate raspy voice. And Tenay was putting it over. You know, these are the things that make me, those guys, like the referees, the third man, I think it's the first man, but that commentary team's right up there with it. to get the talent over. And Tenay did an exceptional. Tenay's kind of like pre-Stevie Richards smartboard. So analytical with everything when he commentated.
With the professor himself. Yeah. A few more. Homicide.
Never got to know him, but I did work him on an explosion match. I was going to call it implosion because I went over again. As Dr. Stevie, I got to wrestle Homicide, and it was so much fun. He's always been cool. You know, he's obviously one of those guys that kind of demands respect at the same time as well. And I believe Homicide should have done a lot more or made a lot more in the business. I'd still have to put him in a C because I never really got to know him.
Okay, then. 2 more names, and that's it. Taylor Wilde.
Very nice girl. Very nice girl. We worked together with the Monsters Ball with her and Daphne. She was always very sweet, very cool. And she seemed like a normal person, which is like weird in the wrestling business. But I didn't get to know her too much just within that, so I give her a B.
And to wrap it up, Tracy Brooks.
I absolutely give her an A. One of the sweetest people ever in the business. She was married or at the time dating Frankie Kazarian, so I got to know her through. It was Frankie, Joe, Daniels, AJ as the group. So obviously Tracy was there. Very, very nice. I love Frankie, although he's a natural born heel. I'd have to put him at a D. He's a nice, but she's definitely an A. Very, very nice woman.